Ciao a tutti e bentornati sempre alle nostre pillole di Book to Me e come sapete in quest'ultimo periodo sempre dal Book Pride qui a Milano. E anche adesso, come abbiamo fatto già in passato, abbiamo un ospite che viene da molto lontano per raccontarci il suo libro. Viet Thanh Nguyen, spero di averlo pronunciato bene, I hope. Perfect, good. Because I'm always afraid to make mistakes about the names of people and I don't like. Also with my surname in other languages, it's completely mess. So it's good.
We share that in common.
Oh, good. So, first of all, thanks for coming. Thank you indeed. And tell us about your experience for these days, for this moment, I think, in the Book Pride. It was very crowded, I think.
Well, I just love coming to Italy. I mean, whenever I receive an invitation from my publisher, Neri, Pozza, I never turn it down because I enjoy my time here so much.
Oh, good to know. So, let's show the book. Io sono l'uomo con due facce di Neri Pozza, as you already said. So, let's start from the beginning. Who is the man with the two faces?
Well, it is me. I was born in Vietnam and I came to the United States as a refugee from the Vietnam War. And when I was growing up in the United States, in California, I felt myself to be a person of two faces. In my parents' very Vietnamese household, I felt like an American spying on them. And then when I stepped out into the rest of the American world, I felt like a Vietnamese spying on Americans. And so that experience of duality and duplicity, I think, is actually very common for people who are minorities.
Absolutely.
And so this is a story about my family and about myself and about our time in the United States, but it's also about the United States.
Someone is happy about the word you are telling. So when you talk, usually people scream, so that's good.
I've never had that reaction before. So
Yeah.
You have very, good readers out there. But it's also about the United States as having two faces as well, as I think Europe is starting to discover.
Absolutely. But apart from the book, this one is very actually in Italy because we have this discussion about people of, let's say, first, second generation that they think because they are Italian, but sometimes when you look around they say, you're Italian, but. So I have to ask you, how do you manage to overcome this issue?
So this issue of duality, I think, is universal. I think all of us have two faces, but the difference that you're pointing out is that sometimes those conditions are imposed on us when we don't want to have that. I mean, I know a lot of people of the first and second generation who are refugees or immigrants, and they just want to be Americans. But as you say, they're reminded by other people this perception that they don't belong in the United States or that they're not fully American like other people. So how do we contest that? There's many different ways. I write, and I try to make people understand that the reason we exist in the United States is because the United States probably was in our countries because of war, colonialism, capitalism. And so instead of feeling guilty about having two faces or having this duality, my work is to remind Americans and others that these countries produced this duality.
But something that is strange at least from my point of view, if I think about the US, it's a country that is based on immigration. So who decides who is the real American or not? Because if you start from the beginning, from the 17th century, everybody can be American.
Well, of course, there were already indigenous peoples.
Yep, absolutely. That's the real one. They're the real one.
And then the United States also enslaved Africans and brought them to the United States. And so these histories are a part of American history, but many Americans have a hard time dealing with that. That's a part of our two faces. And then, as you probably know, that some of our presidents and some of our leaders are themselves the children or grandchildren of immigrants, and yet some of them hate immigrants. That's a very I don't think it's uniquely American, but it's common for people who, even if they're descended from immigrants, to turn against immigrants.
Absolutely.
And so I think there is a responsibility for those of us who are immigrants and refugees to remind the countries that we live in that, in fact, immigrants and refugees have helped to build these countries.
But do you see any differences from the past? I mean, the situation now is improving or is getting worse?
I think American history shows that it is cyclical. It gets better, it gets worse. And right now, obviously, we're at a moment where it's quite bad.
Quite challenging.
For refugees and immigrants in the United States. And so that, I think, is an even greater challenge for those of us who advocate for immigrants and refugees to continue to make the claim that they belong to the United States and that the United States should remember its own laws You know, we're at a time when the presidential administration is disregarding American laws to do what it wants, and so it's up to all Americans to ensure that the United States, you know, lives up to its own claims to be an exceptional country.
Absolutely. And also you are here like, you know, US citizen that wrote a book in English, so who more than you?
I would hope so.
Who more than you?
Now English is the official language of the United States. This has never happened before.
Yep.
It's never happened before.
I remember before the war it was just a challenge between the US and German language also at the beginning. So it was just a kind of competition because most of the immigrants came from German part. So and after the First World War, if I remember well, they decided to be English.
Well, so at least in the United States, we do have a strong tradition of writers coming from other countries and learning English and claiming English as our own and telling our stories through that language, and by that way making our claim to the country.
Thank you indeed for your time. Thank you for your time, because the more you talk and more I want to read the book. So thanks really for you. Let's just remind me the title. Io sono l'uomo con due facce, Neri, Pozza, editore. Nguyen, thanks a lot really, and enjoy today the Book Pride.
I definitely will.
Thank you. Ciao.